Welcome back to Lessons in Filmmaking. Today I want to talk about the age-old question of film school and give you sort of my ultimate opinion on whether or not you should go. So I went to film school personally. I went to a film program that was at a larger public university, Western Carolina University's School of Stage and Screen, and more specifically the Film and Television Production Department. So I want to run through my personal list of pros and cons when it comes to the topic of film school. So the first pro, I think, is that film school is a very safe environment for you to learn and grow as a filmmaker. And what I mean by this is that film school is a place where you can fail and there's not a lot of repercussion. Basically, you can make 10 short films or 20 short films and you could fail on half of them, and the repercussions are going to be so much different than if you pour all of your savings into your passion project that you self-finance and then it turns out to be a disaster, but at least you learned from it, right? So the repercussions can definitely be significantly less, especially financially, outside of the costs of going to film school, which I will get into just a little bit later. Another big pro is that you'll really end up making not only friends for life at film school, but you'll meet your first colleagues and it's your first network. This eventually becomes somewhat of kind of a spider web for your network, because you're all gonna graduate and you're gonna move to different places, but your connections are gonna double and triple and quadruple. And I still keep in touch with all of my close friends from film school, and well, hello. Hello, did you want to be a part of the video? So I still keep in touch with all of my friends from film school, and even one of them actually shot the short film that I did last August. So these are very valuable connections, and whatever you all end up doing in the vast landscape of the world that is filmmaking, you're gonna be able to help each other out in some way or another. Another great example of this is that a lot of ways in which jobs are found in the film industry these days is actually through Facebook groups. And now there is a particular dedicated Facebook group that is only for alumni of the film program that I went to, where we all share jobs with each other with respect to where everybody is located, what their region is, what their market is, and we all help each other out in that way. Another big pro is that you have a great opportunity to experience mentorship. Now, mentorship is extremely valuable, and it can be very hard to come by sometimes in the professional world, because in the professional world, especially in the film industry, everybody is just trying to get ahead. So there's, it becomes hard to find people who have it within themselves to dedicate a little bit of their time to helping somebody else move along and learn and grow. Whereas in film school, people that become professors, a lot of the time, a big reason that they become a professor is because they would like to be a mentor. In fact, it's very much a part of the job and the job description. So through film school, I was able to have a number of really great mentors. I had mentors in directing and independent filmmaking. I had a really great writing mentor, and I carry all of these lessons learned from them into my own career. And ultimately, I think the biggest pro for me when it comes to film school is that you just come out of it a better filmmaker, and you save yourself years of struggle in working so hard around everything else in your life to be able to grow as a filmmaker. And film school just is this wonderful chunk of time that you give yourself to grow in your craft. Okay, let's talk about cons, because film school is not all sunshine and rainbows. And there are quite a few things to be wary of if you are considering this decision. So obviously, as I had mentioned before, film school is expensive. And this is more or less across the board. Obviously, it's going to be different if you go to a small program in a community college, which I highly, highly encourage. But across the board, public universities, private universities, whatever it is, it's going to be expensive. And it gets particularly pricey when you get to, the USCs, the NYUs, and the more quote unquote prestigious film schools. And a lot of people will end up taking on a significant amount of debt to bring themselves to film school. And this always begs the question, is it worth it? Because a film degree ultimately doesn't get you a job. When you get out into the industry, nobody cares that you have a degree. Lots of people went to film school, lots of people didn't. It's just a personal choice. But basically, when you get out of film school, you start right at the bottom again. And a lot of times the question is asked, if you're gonna spend $100,000 and go into debt to go to film school, why not just take that money and make a movie instead? The one counter I have to that personally is that if you go into debt $100,000 to make a movie, there's a very slim chance that you will actually make that back, and you'll just put yourself further in the hole. I would encourage taking $10,000 and making a movie. I think that is that's a wise choice, but take what I say with a grain of salt, I guess. But if you're walking out of film school with $100,000 in debt, at the very least, there are plans and procedures in place for you to pay all of that back. I'm not saying it's a smart choice to take on debt. In fact, I would rather that you don't take on debt to go to film school. But if you are going to, keep it low. Don't go to USC, don't go to NYU. So another big con of film school is that film school is very much an idealistic scenario. Film schools are in the business of selling dreams. So basically what they do is they round up all the young kids that decided that they wanted to make movies, and they present it as this very easily accessible thing that's a totally doable career. And then you get out into the world and you realize that hundreds of people want to make movies and very few of them are actually doing it for a living. So film school is very much a place where you can get caught up in the buzz of the dream. And then when you get out into the real world, there can very much be a little bit of a shock when you enter the industry, and you sort of get a feel for what life is going to be like if you want to make movies. So for instance, people that decided to forego the choice to go to film school really didn't have to deal with this sort of wake-up call of the world because they just tackled it from day one. And therefore, if you do this, you gain lots of valuable real-world experience so that when you finally are ready to make your movie, you'll just be a very well-rounded person, and I think you'll be all the better for it. So another big con of film school, in my opinion, is ego. Film school is full of really big personalities, and this is both in students and in professors. I think this is not completely restricted to film school. This is just a real world thing, but film school is very much a place where you have to deal with these kinds of personalities on a very daily basis. Louie, jeez Louise. Whew. Okay, gosh, sorry about that. So ego is essentially inescapable, really in all facets of life, but it's very, very present in film schools. And lastly, another big con that I think of when I think about film school is that it's really easy to find yourself getting stuck in student filmmaking. In my own personal observation of student films, I notice a lot of trends. Of course, you have the classic, alarm clock goes off and person wakes up and you follow them throughout the day while a bunch of wacky things happen, sort of short film that you see a lot in the student capacity. But I also see a lot of things like cheap horror tricks, and I see a lot of dramas that really want to have something to say, but don't really have much to say because, I mean this as nicely as I possibly can, they're made by 19-year-old filmmakers who haven't lived enough life to really have much to say. And I say that as someone who wrote a lot of scripts as a 19-year-old filmmaker and thought that I had just written, my magnum opus, and then when I look back on it, I realized that it was a script that came out of a 19-year-old brain. So I think that by foregoing film school and giving yourself real-world experience, you ultimately will have more things to say, and you'll probably tell better stories for it. So by getting stuck in student filmmaking, quote unquote, it can make it really hard to transition to professional work. Because often when you leave film school, you are leaving with usually a thesis project in hand, and you'll think that this is the greatest thing you've ever made, and it's gonna launch your career, and it's gonna get you to tons of festivals. And more often than not, it's just a little bit of a dud. Or at the very best, it's a stepping stone. Now, I say this as someone who had this experience. I made a short film called Ambiguity. It was about a pastor that watches his church become infected with conspiracy, therefore leading him to abandon his faith. So a very interesting concept. I was really happy with the script and the idea and everything that I did with it. And ultimately, when I finished the project, I was very proud because it was one of the most challenging projects I'd made. It's the longest project I had made. And I really had this thought that this was gonna be the project that was gonna take me to some film festivals and get me started. And then by the time I had submitted it to festivals and I was waiting around, I got into, I think, maybe 3 festivals, and I was able to go to 2 of them, and ultimately I didn't end up getting much out of the project other than the experience of making it and learning and growing for me to move on to my next project. So while that was a big disappointment, what that did do for me is it propelled me into action to make another project that was without the resources of a film school, without the somewhat coddling nature of a film school. And now this project is finished and it's making a festival run, and I just did the first premiere at a film festival in South Carolina, and now I'm basically just spending the summer waiting on the rest of the decisions. And in the meantime, I'm just continuing to work on everything else and getting plenty of real-world experience so that I can tell better stories. So just for some final thoughts, I think that film school is great, but it is not the end-all be-all. I personally, from my experience, think film school can be a very valuable experience, and it can propel you in a lot of great different directions through mentorship and through the people that you meet and through the things that you learn and through growing as a filmmaker. But if you were to take my advice, I would not shell out ridiculous amounts of money. I think a community college filmmaking program is just as valuable as the $100,000 you would spend to go to a prestigious, like I said, film school. Because at the end of the day, when you graduate and get out into the real world, no matter the amount of connections you might have made, you're still more or less starting at the bottom again. So ultimately, it's up to you. Do you want to start at the bottom in the real world and work your way up as a filmmaker and learn and get real world experience? Or do you want to take a 2 to 4 year gap and really, really hone your skills and grow before you start at the bottom again? So that's pretty much what I have to say on film school. Again, I just want to reiterate, please don't take on debt. Please don't. You know what? This is just, I think, this is a general statement. Just don't take on debt, especially for film school. I think it's absolutely not worth it to take on debt for film school. I think it's absolutely not worth it to take on debt for your magnum opus Citizen Kane, movie that you really want to make. Don't max out your credit cards. Don't take on debt. There are plenty of other ways to do things. So that's pretty much all I have to say on that. I'll be curious to hear what everybody else thinks. So please let me know in the comments. What's your opinion on film school? Because it's a hot topic and everybody has different thoughts. So if you disagree with something that I've said, please feel free to counter me and I'll throw you a response and let you know what I think. So thanks again, everyone, for tuning into Lessons in Filmmaking. I hope these are well enjoyed. I do really enjoy making them myself. Peace and love, y'all. I will see you in the next one.